Good morning, New Hope family. I just wanted to give you a little devotional thought as we begin our day today. Actually, this is one of a two-part little devotional thought. I'll do the second one in a subsequent video, but some thoughts that I've been thinking about over the last couple weeks as we've been working through and got this coronavirus and ramping up with it. Thoughts that I've been having are kind of a combination of socially distancing but yet spiritually approaching. And so I'm going to focus mostly on the social distancing side of it today and just talk with you a little bit about that. It's been really an interesting change in our society. We're adopting the new normals. Social distancing is probably a word that I think most of us are probably going to get tired of at some point. I know a lot of people I've talked to are either frustrated about it, some are anxious, really nervous, apprehension. There's a lot of these emotions that are swirling around. My goal in this video is simply to invite you to adopt a new and maybe a different mindset or perspective than you currently have on this. Changes like this are never easy for anyone. Sometimes they can be a blessing in disguise, and so I want to perhaps challenge you to think of it in that way. A few years back, I was faced with a unique opportunity, a change in my schedule, a new normal, so to speak, and that was I had the opportunity to take a sabbatical that lasted several months. One of the best pieces of advice that I got throughout that process of planning beforehand for the sabbatical was, don't go into this without a plan. The idea was, you know what, there's going to be a lot of adjustments, there's going to be some odd things, uncomfortable things, changes, and you need to do your best to plan for those in advance. And you do so by essentially thinking, what are the things that matter most? And what are the things that maybe I've been doing that I don't need to be doing right now? And so these new normals really can be a challenge for us to adopt to, but at the same time, if we prioritize our goals and then we plan on how we're going to reach them, it can really be a productive time in our world. What I see right now is a lot of people, they're having a lot of emotional either negativity or reaction to a lot of the things going on. And a lot of that's driven by, the news cycle and fear and all of these kind of things. I see people who are really kind of responding reactionally with their, whatever their choices are. They're listening to every little news article and all this kind of stuff and forming opinions, attitudes, and then kind of having reactions after that. And I just want to challenge you not to do that, because simply put, if you're functioning in crisis mode for a long time, it is frankly exhausting. And you can't live like that for long. You're going to burn out emotionally, and it's not going to be healthy for you physically. And so what I want to do is maybe treat this as a little bit of a sabbatical, like I had to do when I stepped away from ministry. And it was an opportunity for me to just kind of assess my old patterns and maybe adopt some new normals in my life and break away from some of those old patterns and practices and adopt some new ones. This is challenging though, isn't it? Because we like our patterns. We had those patterns because we liked them or because we felt they worked. And so sometimes the most challenging part is trying to have an open mind and doing new things. And for me, that was really the case when I was on sabbatical. So the hardest thing on the whole sabbatical was kind of interesting, was not going to church at New Hope, where I pastor. And it was really odd because that's a place that, I'm the plant pastor there, the starting founding pastor. And so it's a culture that I really enjoy and love and have had part of shaping, and a lot of relationships that are really rich to me and I really enjoy. So not going to church there was probably the biggest single adjustment out of all of it. And it was odd. It really challenged me with this idea of opening myself in a new mindset, because I had to kind of be forced into a new rhythm there on Sundays and a new pattern. But what I came to realize as part of that, throughout that process, was this: that there are parts of the old pattern that maybe I really, really valued, and I wanted to make sure that I rekindled and picked up some of those relationships and practices after I got out of sabbatical. But the time of being away, it also helped me to realize that some of these things that I felt I needed to do or was just constantly doing or whatever, those were some things I needed to let go. And I needed to let go of those in order to make room for maybe different or even better habits, better things, better practices. And so as we experience the whole social distancing and putting the whole nation on pause, so to speak, here's two new normals that I think would be beneficial to adopt moving forward. The first one is this: moving away from entertainment and moving toward personal engagement. Perhaps the biggest thing that I saw, especially in social media feeds, out of all of this was like, what do you do after you binge watch everything on Netflix? What are you gonna do now after day 2, after you've watched all this stuff? And it's really amazing. One of the things that I've noticed over the last probably 10 years in ministry, especially when I ask people how they're doing, number one response isn't, oh, we're doing well, or there's this going on or that. Number one response is, how are you doing? We're busy. We're busy. And man, we are on the go all the time, and we are, filling our lives with all kinds of activities and all kinds of entertainment. And that's really kind of what defines us as a culture, isn't it? We're just driven by these types of things. And I see that as soon as social distancing and mandatory stay home type of things were beginning to be talked about, man, that was really a big source of stress for a lot of people. Like, what are we going to do now? Are these entertainment avenues going to continue? What are we going to do with these kids? They're going to be here at day 2. We're going to be driving each other nuts. And man, it's really one of these things that I've been challenged and have with personally, and I've also challenged a lot of people with. Let's move away from this idea that we have to be entertained or we have to be doing all these things, and let's move toward a more rich environment of personal engagement, or should I say interpersonal engagement, because that's really the stuff that matters most. We need to reevaluate, and I think this whole pause and a lot of people being home if they're told to be, especially those people I'm speaking to you right now, this is a great time to really reevaluate the importance of people in your life, and maybe to rekindle some of those relationships, even with people in your own household. Man, you may be thinking, man, I'm going to be home with this person for how long? Man, wouldn't it be great if this was a time when you really took advantage of it and rekindled some of the investment in a relationship, because all relationships require investment. And a lot of times I think we get so isolated by our choices of entertainment and driven by our activities that we let go of some of the richness of interpersonal engagement with people. Tara and I were out to dinner a while back, and we were sitting there enjoying our meal at a restaurant we really love to go to, and we looked across, and there was this younger couple, and they seemed to be, out, kind of as a date or something like that. And we just watched, and probably 80% of the time, they were not even conversing with each other. They were both just on their devices, just engaged with their phones. And I thought, man, what a missed opportunity that is. What a missed opportunity. And so, especially if you're put on pause, so to speak, if you're practicing the social distancing and maybe you even have to stay home because of some health conditions or those kind of things, and you're really restricted in what you can do activity wise, I want to really encourage you to take this time to reevaluate, moving away from entertaining and just trying to fill that space with stuff, and instead maybe invest it in people. And the second thing that I'd love you to do, besides moving away from entertainment and toward personal engagement, is this. Maybe the second new normal would be good as well. And that's moving away from reactionary impulses and toward planned responses. As I was on my sabbatical, it would have been really silly of me if I would have said, we're just going to figure it out as each day comes, because we don't really have an agenda. I think a lot of people are doing that right now. And yes, the situation is changing rapidly. It's evolving daily, but you can develop some pretty static rhythms and some habits that I think will be very life-giving to you through this. But probably the key to all of that is not just to develop a rhythm or a habit of, kind of unthought, unplanned, just kind of, this is what I'm falling into this rut to do. Instead, I would really urge you to use this time when a lot of things are put on pause and a lot of activities have stopped and, all that kind of stuff. I would really challenge you to use this time to reprioritize in your life what matters most. And then develop a plan to say, here's how I'm going to let my time, energy, resources reflect those priorities. And maybe that's adopting, some new financial goals. Maybe that's reprioritizing relationships like we already talked about. Maybe it's investing in something for the future. Maybe educating yourself, using this time to enrich yourself, maybe to benefit your family or whatever you can do. And for some of you that this is really a hard time, because I know there's some folks that have, they've lost the ability to earn an income right now, and we're really kind of up in the air what's going to happen here. Maybe this would be a great time for you to say, I'm gonna move away from reactionary like panic or fear in this moment, and I'm gonna reprioritize what matters most. Do we have enough food? And if we don't, can I make a plan? Maybe get in touch with some people that can help me out, or maybe the church, or whatever plan I can make to make sure that we have what we need. And are the people in my life well? And can I develop some plans to energize those relationships and invest in them? So I would challenge you to maybe think about this whole social distancing thing differently. A lot of people are thinking of it as a crisis, and I would instead challenge you to think of it as a really unique opportunity that you have. You may never have another moment like this in your entire lifetime. To kind of have a chance built into the whole rhythm of our society to step back and let's redeem this time and use it wisely, because we're called to do that in the scriptures. And so let's move away from these reactionary emotional impulses, and let's really reprioritize some things that are going to matter most to us. And let's move away from this just entertainment, fill the space, this void with stuff, whether that's activities or entertainment. And let's really reprioritize and reevaluate how we're treating the people in our lives, and our friends, our neighbors, and our family, co-workers, all of those people in our lives. So let's use this time and redeem it for something I believe is going to be God honoring. So I want to challenge you to rethink this, not as a crisis, but as a really, maybe even once in a lifetime opportunity. Now in part 2 of this video, I'm going to actually start talking to you about the other side of this. There's a social distancing side, which I just kind of talked with you a little bit about. But in my next video, I want to talk with you a little bit about spiritually approaching and how you can specifically use this time in a redemptive way spiritually. And so I'll see you next time. God bless.